Throughout its lifespan, the PS4 has blessed us with a plethora of top-tier JRPGs. Certainly leagues above the PS3 in this regard. I mean, we didn't even get a mainline Dragon Quest or Persona entry that generation. In all honesty, the PS4 along with the Switch are huge reasons why JRPGs are pretty much in a second renaissance right now. With that said though, as the famous saying goes, all good things must come to an end. The PS5 has basically been out for a full year at this point, so with each passing month, the PS4 just fades more into the background. Yeah, sure, it'll still remain relevant and popular for some time to come, but eventually, there will come a time where it's just considered old news for the time being and all focus will be shifted to the next generation. Later on down the road, there will be a point where it'll be considered retro and cool again, but that won't be for a while. So consider this sort of a swan song for the PS4 and the amazing generation of JRPGs it was able to give us over the years. These won't be ranked in any order, and it's just a list of some of my personal favorites on the system. Some of these will be console exclusive and others aren't, but I didn't want to leave out some incredible games just for that reason. Also, just to spread the love, half of these will be turn-based and the other half will be action. Now, with all that cleared up, let's just get this video underway. Here's a list of 8 great JRPGs for the PS4 that you need to play. To start this list off, we have Dragon Quest XI Definitive Edition. Developed by Square Enix, Dragon Quest XI is a return to tradition for the Dragon Quest series. Dragon Quest IX was the first time for a mainline entry to be on a handheld, and some parts of the game encouraged a lot of online play. And Dragon Quest X itself was completely online. Plus, it never got released outside of Japan either. The last time we got a mainline console Dragon Quest entry before this one was all the way back in 2004 for the PS2, and that one is often considered one of the best in the series. That absence made this type of experience more desirable than ever, so I'm happy to say that Dragon Quest XI absolutely delivered. As someone who's played and beaten nearly every mainline Dragon Quest game, this one is easily one of my favorites in the entire series, if not my absolute favorite. If you're someone who grew up playing RPGs on the Nintendo and Super Nintendo, then this game is almost all you could ever ask for. And even if you didn't, there's still so much to love here. It's the perfect entry for newcomers to the series. Dragon Quest has always been a series that's prided itself on remaining true to its roots, which works well for longtime fans, but not as effective for modern players. This has made some of the previous entries feel a little dated at the time of their release when compared to their contemporaries. Dragon Quest XI though, this is not the case. Outside of the silent protagonist and turn-based battle system, the game is as modern as it gets. Like, they seriously did an amazing job pleasing both old and new fans alike. I mean shit, for the purist, you can even play the entire game in 8-bit mode if you want. But yeah, the graphics are beautiful, the characters are super charming, the exploration is awe-inspiring, and most importantly, it's just an incredibly fun game. Look, I could gush about this game forever, so I'll just say, if you haven't played this one yet, what are you waiting for? Coming up next, we have NieR Automata. NieR Automata was developed by Platinum Games and is the creative vision behind the interesting man known as Yoko Taro. His work on the first NieR game went largely underappreciated at the time of its release, but time has really allowed its depth and unique brilliance in storytelling to really shine and has since become a cult classic over the years. In retrospect, the concept, story, and characters were always praised a lot. It was just the gameplay itself that was criticized the most. Fortunately, its sequel, NieR Automata, kept all the strengths from the first game and improved the gameplay by leaps and bounds. Games should be fun most importantly, and regardless of how amazing all the other aspects of NieR Automata are, it's just an extremely fun game to play. Combat is so swift and fluid, and the way they switch up perspectives a lot is so engaging and well done. Sometimes you're in 2D, sometimes you're in 3D, other times you're in a shmup-like setting, and yeah, it's just really awesome. The combat, the graphics, and the exploration would already make this game worth playing alone, but like I was saying earlier, the series is really known for its super unique storytelling and creative concepts, and this is where the game truly shines. I don't want to spoil a lot, but let me just say, this is definitely not the traditional open world type experience you're used to playing. I can almost guarantee that. You don't even get to understand the true story of the game unless you play through it multiple times, which isn't as bad as it sounds either, as you do get to play as different characters and see different perspectives. All in all, NieR Automata is easily one of the most creative and original games I've ever played. It's a really special experience that you won't forget. The next game we have on our list is Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 Royal is an enhanced edition of the original Atlas Classic with tons of additional content. The base game was already amazing enough, so all this extra stuff just bumped it up from like a 9 to a 9.5 or something. Yeah, I don't really believe in 10s, but it's close enough. The game has received near perfect scores from most reviewers, and it's not hard to see why. Everything about this game just comes together to form a really cohesive and memorable experience. The characters are also charming and fleshed out. The soundtrack is catchy as hell and has some absolute bangers. All the menus and visuals in general are so flashy and stylized, and the turn-based battle system is so fast-paced and loads of fun. It's easily one of my favorite turn-based battle systems ever. The devs really just did a great job in making something that was considered sort of monotonous in previous games into a system that's much more engaging, but still just as strategic as ever before. The dungeons themselves have tons of variety as well, and usually have their own gimmicks that help them stand out. Between the combat, the exploration, all the random daily stuff you can do, and the social sim aspect, they all just come together to create this really addicting gameplay loop. It's one of those games where you start playing and then all of a sudden you're like, shit, 4 hours have already gone by. So yeah, it's just a really fun game. If you still haven't played this one yet, in my opinion, it does live up to all the hype and is well worth playing. Coming up next, we have Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yep, I'm choosing this one over 15 because, well, I just think it's a better game, to be honest. Some parts of Final Fantasy 15 I really did enjoy, and the first third of the game I had a lot of fun with it. Unfortunately though, the more I played it, the more of its flaws I saw. As good as the exploration was, the story was just an absolute mess and definitely didn't live up to the Final Fantasy name. I think they've since added some DLC, but yeah, it didn't change the fact that the first time I played it, I was just like, what the hell is going on here? I wouldn't say it's a bad game, just not the best Final Fantasy title on the system. That honor, of course, goes to Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's not a perfect game either, but I did enjoy it more than 15, I think. It would literally be impossible to fully satisfy all fans of the original, but Square Enix did a pretty good job here. They did take some liberties with the story, which may not please everyone, but come on, were people really expecting a full one-to-one adaptation of the original? I don't know, I certainly wasn't. But yeah, they really nailed the visuals and atmosphere, and the action-based battle system had some fun elements to it. I mean, yeah, every character may not be as fun to play as others, but they do have a good base formula here at least, and hopefully can improve upon that aspect for the sequel. Regardless if you're a huge fan of the original Final Fantasy VII, think it's just okay, or haven't played it at all, there's still a good time to be had here. It's one of those games where if you're a JRPG fan, you probably owe it to yourself to check it out one of these days. The next game we have on our list, or games I should say, is the Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel series. I'm including them all here because unlike series like Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, or Persona, all of these games are actually directly connected to one another. This means while you could start with Trails of Cold Steel 3 or 4, if you want to experience the full story, it's highly recommended that you don't. The full story of this particular arc starts in the first Cold Steel game, and if you want to take it back even further, the main lore behind the series was actually first established in the Trails in the Sky games on the PSP, but that's a little bit outside the scope of this video, so we won't get into that. For all intents and purposes, starting with Cold Steel 1 is probably a fine enough entry point. The first two games were technically on the PS3, whereas the next two games were on the PS4, making this one kind of a weird entry, but it is what it is. There are PS4 versions for all of them anyway. But yeah, as you could probably tell by how deep the lore goes, the world building in the series is just second to none. The games have a lot of dialogue and can get a little narrative heavy at times, but if you're someone who's into intricate worlds where every little aspect is explained, down to stuff like foreign trade policy and politics between countries, then this is the series for you. Likewise, that won't make it for everyone either, as to some people, that might be a little too much fluff. In my opinion though, it really helps the world feel fleshed out and realistic. Well, as realistic as a story involving teenagers fighting in mechs can be at least. Outside the world building, the combat and music are real standouts as well. Falcom is like a musical god, so of course their work here is no exception. Combat is turn-based and has a lot of strategy to it, with stuff like proper positioning to line up your attacks, manipulating the turn order with certain skills, and stuff like that. There's also a ton of customization with stuff like orbments and master quartz, which affects your stats and what spells you learn. All in all, the Trails of Cold Steel series is just excellent and is getting a pretty popular reputation online as of recent for good reason. They're all well-made games with clearly loads of time, effort, and heart going into them. Coming up next, we have Tales of Arise. Tales of Arise is the newest entry in Bandai Namco's long-running franchise, and is also the newest game on this list considering it just came out like a couple months ago. This technically did come out for the PS5 as well, so you could argue that it's a next-generation game, but in my opinion, it is better than any of the other Tales of games on the PS4, so here we are. Tales of Arise is an incredibly fun action RPG with gorgeous visuals, great character dynamics, and amazing music. In a series with 17 mainline entries, a lot of fans are already calling this one of the best in the franchise. It doesn't come without some flaws, of course, but as an overall game, it's just an extremely fun experience. It's definitely a fantastic entry point to get new fans involved in the series. Speaking of, for those interested in the franchise as a whole, we did release a couple retrospectives over some of the older titles recently, like Tales of Symphonia and Tales of the Abyss. Not only that, but we also released a complete series retrospective over the entire franchise. Check them out if you want. Regardless, Tales of Arise is not only just a great Tales game, but a great game in general. I highly recommend it. The next game we have on our list is Yakuza Like a Dragon. The Yakuza franchise has existed since all the way back in the PS2 days and always had some RPG elements of sorts, but this is the first time the series has gone full-on JRPG with the traditional turn-based battle system. Honestly, it's sort of hard to put this game into words, as it's just done so insanely well. Hats off to Ryuga Gotoku Studio, as they absolutely killed it here. This is right up there with Persona 5 and Dragon Quest XI as my favorite RPGs of the generation, and some of my favorites ever, really. Tales of Arise might join them soon, but I haven't played that one enough to fully cement it quite yet. We just featured this game in our video last week about 8 great JRPGs that take place in a modern setting, and I already fanboyed over the game enough there, so I'll keep it pretty short here. The writing is absolutely top-notch, the battle system, along with the class system, has tons of depth, and the game is overall just packed full of content. There's so much stuff to do between all the sub-stories and random side activities, like a kart racer, taking some swings at the batting cages, and even managing your own business. As fun as all this stuff is though, in my opinion, the real strengths of the game come with the story and characters. The game is set in the real world, and all of your party members are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, making their relationships and dialogue really relatable. As someone who just turned 30 this year, it's getting harder to relate to a 16-year-old wielding a giant sword, but adults facing real-life struggles? Now that I can get behind. If you're someone who's looking for a more mature, turn-based JRPG without all the over-the-top anime tropes like Persona or cartoony aesthetic like Dragon Quest, then I seriously can't recommend this game enough. I can assure you it's just what you've been looking for. Check it out. Alright, and to finish off this list, we have both Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana, and Ys 9, Monstrum Nox. Yeah, I'm cheating and including both games here, but unlike the other series on this list, I don't have an obvious favorite between these. Monstrum Nox, being the newer one, is a little more polished in some gameplay and exploration aspects, but that's not to say Lacrimosa of Dana isn't polished, as it definitely is, and it is a lot of fun. Plus, it has a really cool tropical aesthetic. Honestly, I do prefer that over the more gothic vibe of Monstrum Nox, but it is what it is. They're both amazing games either way, with extremely fun combat. These games are a little lighter on story compared to some others on this list, as they're more focused on the gameplay and exploration instead. Both the Ys series and Legend of Heroes series were developed by Falcom, and are practically polar opposites with their gameplay to story ratio. If you want fast and fluid battles and a pacing that doesn't get bogged down by hours of dialogue, you've come to the right place. Besides the combat and exploration, another big strength of these games is the music. Like any other Falcom title, the music is just filled with bangers and catchy tunes everywhere. The Ys series is known for having some hard-rocking soundtracks, and these games are no exception. The tracks are so vitalizing and energetic and really get you amped to explore the environment. All in all, these are just incredibly fun action RPGs done right. Check them out if you haven't yet. And that about wraps up this video. Thanks for watching, everyone. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, it would mean a lot if you could either hit that like button, or even consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. We put out new JRPG content pretty much every week. With as big as the JRPG library is on the PS4, there's a ton of great titles that I didn't get to, so let us know in the comments below what some of your favorites are. For our weekly and longtime viewers, I know I just talked about a couple of these games last week, and that this is a more generic video than the topics we usually cover, but with the PS4 slowly losing relevance to the PS5 over time, I figured it was better to be a sooner than later type thing. Plus, we released a similar video last year about Switch JRPGs that ended up being our most watched video ever, not accounting the music compilation one, and I think that video coming out just before the holiday season had a little something to do with that. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this one's for the algorithm. Hopefully at least. Looking back on that Switch video, I wish I would have worded some things a bit differently, as I remember clowning on Rex from Xenoblade in a failed attempt to be funny, which ended up catching a little flack. But it is what it is, you live and you learn. It probably won't be the last stupid thing I say either, let's be honest. As always, just want to give a huge thanks to our Patreon supporters. Your generosity is very much appreciated. Other than that, thanks again for watching, everyone, and hope you have an awesome day. This is Gaming Productions. Until next time.